What's up guys, welcome back to the channel. Today we are going to be installing ARP extended wheel studs on the front of the SRT-4.
My name is Zach Ellis and welcome to my journey. I don't know where I'm going or how I'm going to get there, but I'm going to be tearing shit up every step of the way. Along with a few friends, of course. Honestly, I don't know what I'm doing. I'll be building, modifying, repairing, fabricating, and racing every chance I get. But if you enjoyed this content, don't forget to smash the subscribe button and of course, enjoy the video.
So like I said, I'm installing ARP wheel studs in the front of the SRT-4. I only bought the fronts because I was trying to give myself the best chances of getting my delivery earlier than later. I don't know if you guys have seen the ARP brand, I guess. Everything's on back order as far as wheel studs go. I thought maybe I needed the fronts more than I would need the rear, so I went ahead and ordered just the front set. Again, to give myself the best chances of getting these at a reasonable time, which I ordered these the first week of July and I received them the first week of December. I think that's what it was, something like that. So I'm going to be installing the front ones today. I'm not going to go super into detail on how to remove everything in the wheel well, only because I've done it in the past, which I can link it here. I think it's here. Yeah, somewhere up here. Either way, it's going to be at the top. So to give you guys an idea of the difference between the two, ARP obviously is a much harder material, so they're going to withstand more stress, I guess you could say. So higher horsepower, higher G's in the corners, things like that. Versus the stock ones are, I don't want to say they're prone to shear, but they're more likely to shear than the ARP. And then the other big difference that I'm going for is the length. So you guys can see that. As far as thread go, maybe a 1/4 inch more thread. As far as overall length, it's about a 1/2 inch, maybe even a little more, which is going to help me when I switch up my wheels or want to run a spacer. I will still have enough thread engagement on the lug nuts to ensure my wheels staying on the car. I believe that well, I don't want to say 100%, but I'm pretty sure that the wheel studs are considered a consumable. And I think that people that really race their cars, I think they change them pretty frequently, maybe annually, maybe every 6 months, something like that. So being changed a lot more often than I would say 99% of the people out there with any car are changing them. But with all that being said, we're going to go ahead and hop right onto this thing. Knock one side out. Once I finish one side, I'm just going to do the other side off camera. No reason of me being redundant, and we'll go from there. Alright, so I've got one of the hubs off already, and I went ahead and I removed the lug nut. I actually did that when I first started, or the wheel stud. I wanted to kind of show you why you have to press the whole bearing out to be able to change the wheel stud. So again, the length difference, the stock one is way shorter than the aftermarket one. The stock one though, on one side there's a bearing retainer plate, right, that holds the wheel bearing in. There's a little notch right here. This little notch is just big enough to be able to put a stock wheel stud in. If I can get her oriented right. Just enough to get a stock wheel stud in to be able to pull it in if they break. With the ARP, it is just too long. It makes contact back here, which I have seen people grind right here to be able to pull this ARP stud through. I would probably recommend against grinding a notch out on the spindle. I don't think it's going to affect the integrity of the spindle at all, but it's kind of janky. I've already got the spindle out, obviously. The next step is to push the hub out. You don't really need a press to push the hub out. Simply, right here, you can get a socket that's close to the size of that inner diameter. You can put the socket on there and hammer it out. It'll take a few hits to get loose, but once it's out, it'll come out. Sometimes the wheel bearing will come apart if the wheel bearing is pretty old. Usually if they're new, they're not too much of an issue. Both of mine are pretty much brand new, so we're going to let them ride. And then I also have access to a press, so if mine goes bad in 2 weeks from now, I'll just have to repeat this. So we're gonna go ahead, set the camera up, and get this all knocked out. Alright, so we finished up the install of the ARP wheel studs. Process is super straightforward. The only recommendation I would say is if you don't have access to a press, a hydraulic press, I would say be prepared to have the wheel bearings replaced, or just go ahead and have the wheel bearings replaced anyway. Sometimes when you press the hub out of the spindle, it pulls the bearing apart. Not always a big deal, mainly because the actual axle and the axle nut are retaining the bearing, kind of keeping it squished together. So it's not going to fall apart in the future, but it could lead to premature wear of the wheel bearing. So something to think about. I honestly think you could just pull these wheel studs in like you would do a regular wheel stud. But for me, I have access to a press, so I went ahead and did it the proper way. Overall, super simple. I would highly recommend you guys trying to do it if, again, you have the tools to do it. If you're just buying these to have them pressed in by some shop, probably not the best idea, because it's going to cost 5 times as much for them to be pressed in as it did for the actual wheel studs themselves. So it doesn't make a whole lot of sense. And if you're really racing on a car like this, beating the shit out of it, you probably should have a shop press anyway and should be running these studs. I see a lot of people that have high horsepower cars. They do a lot of drag racing, but they don't do any of their own maintenance, which seems kind of absurd, at least for this platform, because as many know, they're pretty prone to breaking. At least once you get into the high horsepower application. Mine's been pretty good. The only things that are breaking are normal wear things, and it's old, so kind of expected. But I've got it all finished up. As you see, the driver's side is still disassembled. I actually assembled the passenger side, took some footage, and then disassembled it again. That is because I think next weekend I'm going to do the fourth mount and the transmission mount. Not 100% sure on that yet, but I'm pretty sure that's where I'm leaning towards. And then once I get the motor mounts in, I'm going to do some other stuff to the car. I have to remove all the coilovers, go through them completely just to make sure they're good for another season. I've been looking at replacing some parts on the coilovers. Since BC Racing coilovers are completely serviceable, you can rebuild them completely. So yeah, if you guys liked the video, don't forget to like, comment, and subscribe, and I'll see you in the next one. I like it.